Hi, this is Sam, and I'd like to talk about the first question, which is how Christianity impacted the founding of America. And this really comes from Dr. Schultz's paper about Earl Warren, I think, when the Justice talked about how America's founding and our documents such as the Bill of Rights were really influenced by Christianity. And I think he's right. And one way that he is right is simply the recognition of God and his existence, the fact that we're to obey him, and the fact that he's the judge. So that the Mayflower Compact opens with a recognition of God, and in the compact they talk about how they're going to spread Christianity, and this is an act of obedience. And you see, Mark Knoll references it, I believe, when he mentions how the Puritans believed that if they obeyed God, they would be blessed, and if they disobeyed God, a curse would come upon them, which is really from the Old Testament, the book of Deuteronomy, when they have a series of blessings and curses, depending on obedience or disobedience. And this idea of God being the judge is present in the Declaration of Independence. We're all familiar with God being the creator and giving us rights, but towards the end, the founders talk about God as the supreme judge of the world, and they appeal to him. So that makes the Declaration not just a grievance against George for George's sake or the American people's sake, but rather to God, pointing the finger at King George, that he's not doing his job as a ruler. And God as judge is seen even in Abraham Lincoln. When in the Civil War, Lincoln shifts his view of what the war is about. He sees it not just about preserving the Union, but the war itself, the bloodiness of the conflict, may be God's judgment because of the sin of slavery. And this idea of slavery, this issue of slavery, was present at the beginning, and I think that Christianity influenced the way the founders approached it, and it's not necessarily in what we would see as a positive light. If you remember reading in Knoll's book, one of the missionaries would convert slaves, but before he baptized them, he wanted them to promise him that they weren't going to seek their freedom. And that's because the Bible doesn't explicitly condemn slavery. It condemns a master abusing his slaves. A master is commanded to treat his slaves well, but on the other side of that, in like Ephesians 5 or 6, the slave is to obey his master. And in the letter to Philemon, Paul sends back the slave Onesimus to his master. He doesn't demand Philemon free Onesimus. He appeals to him as a brother, but it's not to free Onesimus for freedom's sake. Rather, it's to free Onesimus and send him back to Paul to help in his service. So slavery, the way it was dealt with in the founding, where it wasn't abolished right away, I think in part was because Christianity did not condemn slavery. And so even when the Civil War, it took a war to end it. And that brings me to my last point, and this is kind of just an idea. I don't know if it's 100% true. It's kind of a working hypothesis, and that's that the way the Bible presents the household, that the man is the head of the household, and within the church assemblies, the man was the representative of the household, and so the man would speak and things like that. And as we see in the Puritans, the men were again the heads of the households, and in the political arena, they were the voting representatives. And when the Constitution was written, women were not given the right to vote. And I wonder if it's because of the way the family is presented in the Bible. And I'd be interested in hearing your comments about that, whether or not you think that the way the government was set up and who got to vote was influenced in part by an interpretation of the way the family itself was to run, and the man being a representative of the household. So I look forward to reading your comments about that. Thank you for listening.